Hi, and welcome to another episode of the How to Be a Money Master show. I am Jennifer Harder, your financial educator, and tonight we're going to be discussing how to decide whether you should rent or buy. And, before we even get started on this, renting versus buying is a completely personal decision. There are so many things to consider when making that decision, and a lot depends on where you are in your life, um, you know, just what's going on, where you are, other, whether you're married, single, in college, uh, establishing a career, if you decide you are where you want to put down roots, if you have kids, if you, just your lifestyle in general, whether you prefer the country, the city, the suburbs, what you expect out of your house, the housing cost. I mean, there are just so many variables that, it can be very, very difficult to decide which one to sell. Tonight we're going to discuss just a few of the things that might help you make that decision and hopefully make your life and that decision a little bit easier. The first thing to take into consideration is that purchase is rarely an investment. And I say that in the fact that you never really know. So a lot of people think, okay, I'm going to buy this house and then, 20, 30 years from now, it's going to be worth a lot more money. I'm going to sell for this huge profit and I'll be set. And it really, as far as an investment goes, it's not a surefire thing. It depends on how well you maintained it, how the area is. And you don't know, you could be buying in an area that is very, very wonderful right now and highly desired. And, by the time you get ready to sell, it may not be anymore. And so, do not go into buying a home based on, your expectation that the property values are going to rise and you're going to walk away with a lot of money when you go to sell. And secondly, it is definitely not a requirement for the, achieving the quote unquote American dream. Okay. I know, we're told that, especially here in the U.S., it's one of those things to check off, that you have to, go out, get your education, get the job, meet the right person, find your house with a white picket fence, have your 2.5 children, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it really is not. I mean, there are a lot of people who go their entire lives without owning a house. And then, of course, there are other people who, are buying their first house in their early 20s. You just never know. It's whatever works for you in your situation. So do what is right for you and not what you think you should be doing or what you're supposed to do. So a few things to bear in mind. You may want to consider leaning towards renting if, one, you expect to move in the next 5 years, because a lot of times, especially with the closing costs and other expenses of, paying a realtor and everything else, it may be more fiscally worthwhile for you to rent versus buy if you think you'll be moving in the near future. Secondly, if you do not have a credit score that will allow you to borrow the money for a mortgage, obviously that's a big one. There's not a whole lot you can do about that other than paying down your debts, paying on time, and just working on raising that credit score. If you have not saved 20% down, now once again, there's ways around this, especially here in the U.S. There's ways to borrow money for as little as 3.5% down. For anything under 20%, you are going to pay PMI, which is a mortgage insurance. So that raises your monthly expense. So just bear that in mind. If you have not saved the 20% down, there are additional costs involved. Another thing to keep in mind too is that there are things that landlords do that as a homeowner you would have to do on your own or pay somebody to do. So you definitely have to take that into consideration. This is including but not limited to lawn care, maintenance, snow removal, things along those lines. And so, just keep that in mind. If you really do not enjoy doing those things, then, you have to factor in either, continue to rent so you don't have to do them or, the money that it would cost to pay someone else to do them. Another reason that you may want to rent over buying is if you really enjoy being around a lot of other people. Some people don't like having neighbors. Other people really like having people close by. And obviously, there's no better way to have a lot of people close by than to be in an apartment building. And so that is another consideration. And last but not least, you want to look at your monthly expenses, renting versus buying. So if your monthly rent would be less than the combined total of a mortgage, insurance, taxes, HOA fees if they're applicable, PMI if that would be applicable, and maintenance costs, then you may want to consider continuing to rent, because sometimes, depending on the market, renting can be a lot less expensive than buying. Now, on the flip side, you may want to consider buying your house if those same costs, so you take your mortgage, insurance, taxes, HOA, PMI, and maintenance, and if all of those combined would be less than renting, then home ownership might be the better way to go. If you really want to be able to personalize your living space, as anyone who's rented knows, sometimes the landlord will allow you to paint the room a different color. They might allow certain things, but really, if you really want to be able to personalize a home and make it your own, the best way to do that is home ownership. If you really want to be able to have your own space and be away from other people, there are times when you can find a place to rent that is out in the country and not near other people. It's a little more difficult to find, and sometimes the costs are a little bit higher. So definitely something. It's not impossible, but it's just one of those things to keep in mind. And so if you really want that, a lot of times it's easier to find a place to buy out in the country or in a rural area than it is with renting. If you really want to be able to personalize your living space, like we already talked about, if you really want to make it your own, if you want to be able to landscape however you wish, or plant a garden, or add decorative details, those are a lot of times things that a landlord would be, sometimes they're okay with it, sometimes not, but you're at somebody else's discretion. Whereas when you own your own place, aside from when you have maybe certain restrictions from the town, board, but by and large, you can do those things when you own your own home. And if you want multiple pets and or animals that a landlord typically will not allow, I mean, for example, if obviously the most common ones are dogs and cats, and a landlord may not want to allow as many dogs and or cats as you would like to have, or when it comes to other animals like a horse, a goat, chickens, things along those lines, you may not be able to have if you're renting versus if you buy it. Once again, depending on the town ordinances, but you have a better chance of being able to do that if you own your own place than if you're renting. And by no means is this a comprehensive list. In order to consider all the factors, you really have to take out a sheet of paper and or create an electronic document, whichever you prefer. But take that out and on one side list all the reasons for buying, all the things that you really, really want, your must-haves, your deal breakers, your hopes, your dreams, et cetera, et cetera. And on the other side, do the same thing for renting. So you almost have like a pros and cons list for renting versus buying. And chances are one side will be a lot longer than others. Once again, there may be a deal breaker in there. For example, if you cannot get financing, that obviously, would make a huge determining factor, or depending on the cost in your area, or, other things that are going on. But if you have the credit and you have some money saved down, you live in a halfway reasonable area, then that's definitely a good way to kind of figure out going back and forth between the two. The other thing you might want to consider too is, obviously if you're in a relationship, what your partner's needs and wants are. Because, if you want to buy and live out in the country and they want to, be in the heart of the city, once again, you may have to trade off. You may have to say, okay, we'll spend this amount of time out in the country and then we'll spend this time out in the city, or, we'll have a place in the city for during the week, and we'll have a country place for, the weekends or holidays or whatever. So, those are all things that's really good just to put down on paper and figure out the logistics of, before you actually buy and put that investment down, or even sign a lease. Because once you sign that lease, you've made a commitment to do certain things. So, definitely work this all out in paper before you start doing anything in reality. So, once again, hopefully that helps you determine which is better for you. We can always discuss these further in the How to Be a Money Master free Facebook community. It's easy to join, just 3 questions. We actually just had a mortgage broker in last week who was discussing all things mortgages, refinancing, and there's some great information there. I may actually post that interview here too. I'm not sure yet, but there's the possibility. But if not, please, I'm always available. Feel free to reach out to me via Facebook, email me, leave some messages here, questions here, whatever. And, if you have any questions or there's anything you'd like to consider, I'm always available for you to help in any way I can. So on that note, you have a wonderful week, and I will see you all next week. And, just remember that, no matter what you're doing, if you just do a little bit, little by little, a little becomes a lot. And in no time at all, you too can be a money master. Just keep working at it and keep learning. Have a great week.